The essence of Hsing-I, mind form boxing, rests within what I'm about to tell you. So when people say, why do Hsing-I? What's so great about Hsing-I? Well, Hsing-I has a long tradition of producing not just great fighters, but great enlightened fighters. Because until a warrior is really, really in tune with the way of nature, which is what enlightenment really is discovering your own nature. And once you see into that process, then you'll understand why you do the art, because the art is about feeling a certain resonance. And what is this resonance? You can only find it when you do 5 things. So you know Hsing-I is based on 5 movements, right? Pi, right? Chuan, Fong, Bao, Hung. Okay. But these 5 things are represented by a different set of 5 things. The first 2 things you have to understand is these 3 levels of attainment in Hsing-I are reached through yin and yang. So yin and yang, 3 levels of attainment, that's 5 things. So what's your real goal in Hsing-I? It is to separate the yin and the yang. To do that in the first place so that you can understand how they work together. So yin and yang then are between strength and non-strength. Yin receives. Yin is empty. Yang is the active force that fills up. It's penetrating. Yin is receiving. Now, you have to have that kind of mind and understand that in every single movement that you do. Because the first attainment is Mingjing or Lijing, which is strength, the physical attribute. So the first level of Hsing-I is to learn the forms and try to do the forms, because the only way you can do the forms then is through your own strength. But at the second attainment level is called Huajing. At this attainment level, you are learning Hua means to transform or to change. See? So now what are you changing? You're going from a yang movement or primarily yang intent to a yin intent. So you have to blend the yin intent with the yang intent. That means that for every yang movement you make, some part of your body has to receive it. So you have to be in yang and yin at the same time. Yang and yin work together. They're not competing with each other. They are mutually dependent and supporting each other. This is just the fact of nature, people. Okay, believe it or not, okay? So you have to create within you the intent to not only move your physical body in momentum, but then to have a way to receive that momentum within yourself, mind and body, recycle it through your physical and intentional mind, your Shin mind, your intentional Yi, to achieve the third level, which is Anjing. Now, when we say Anjing normally as a gene or an energy, we mean to do what? Press down and up at the same time, right? So what are we really doing with that down and up? So think of yourself as getting out of a chair like this, right? But it's not that specific. What it really is this. That Anjing is combining yin and yang, is it not? So that downward pressure, there was an inside yang pressure inside yang. Because yin and yang look like they oppose each other, but they depend upon each other. They consume each other and become each other. So what your goal is in the last stage is to spiritually get to the point where when you have a conceptual idea of a move to make or a form to do, then you're going to experience that yin and yang aspect as it blends together within your mind and body as you're doing the form, and that will actually change the way you feel. It will change. I can't describe that because you have to experience it for your own, through your own ability to perceive and through your own true nature. So you need to pay attention to what a movement feels like even as you do it, instead of keep trying to conquer the movement. So I have some students here today who are very good at conquering movements. That's too much yang. What's very difficult especially in the internal martial arts, to achieve high attainment, is the fact that when women come here, they assume that yang is the answer because they view it as a yang art, and so they become more yang instead of allowing their feminine yin side to actually help them do the yang part of the art. Harder for men, actually, if you want to know the honest to God truth. Easier for women actually to blend the yin and yang than it is for men to do it, in my experience. And here's why. Because when men first don't conquer, they give up. Because yang is quick, it's not slow. Yin is slow, okay, comparatively. So yang wants to get it done. Yin wants to have non-movement compared to that. You see what I mean? So what men have to do is really open up to the yin side of the nature to receive rather than emit, so that you can build a blend between the two, not be in conflict. And when you have self-judgment, you're in conflict. You can't really do it totally one way, yang, because why? It requires yin for balance. When they say balance, they don't mean balance on one leg. We mean balance between these 5 levels, or the 5 things. Yin yang. What's the first thing? Lijing, wajing, anjing. Lijing, wajing, anjing. So as your forms, so you know there's not that many forms in Hsing-I. There's not that many. This doesn't have a long, 20 kata syllabus like some Okinawan arts, or even like something like lost track boxing. They call it lost track because there's so many moves in it. Nobody actually knows the whole system. Just a few people know parts of the system. That kind of thing. But those are primarily yang arts on the surface. When you first look at, if you were in a storeroom and looking down, a bunch of windows to pick out a martial art, when you got to the southern Chinese arts, you would see a mostly yang storeroom. When you go to the internal martial arts, you'd see mostly a yin storeroom. But that's like saying this right here. You can bring $500,000 somewhere to buy something, or you can just pull out a credit card with unlimited credit. Now, which one? So the credit card looks like, it doesn't look as great as the $500,000 stacked up in cash, right? But the credit card, actually, you can buy more with it than just that $500,000. Its power is in what it has the potential to do. So you have to explore your potential. So I was moved to tell you guys this today because what happens is people get involved in these arts and they stay so in that first stage of trying to do it physically that they say, oh, it's not working. So instead of exploring another way, they just try to conquer it with their intent and strength. Well, the reason you can't conquer it is because why? There's always something opposing you. So what is opposing you? Because it doesn't feel natural. You see what I mean? It feels unnatural. But then when you start to balance the reception with the inception or movement, with the movement, when you start to catch what you put out, and begin to start to recirculate that in the system via yin and yang, you will encounter these three levels of attainment. So right now you can ask yourselves individually, what level am I at? So are you stuck in the first level trying to conquer the art? Or now when everybody comes, and I always tell students, I'm always not teaching just you, but I'm teaching you as a teacher to teach. If you have students come to you and they first have to put that effort in. That's part of exploring that level. You got to explore that whole floor before you pass to the second floor. Okay? But you'll work on that until you actually expose your frustration. Once a student exposes their frustration, they're right to go up to the second level. Doesn't mean they'll be at the second level. It means they're just aspiring to the second level and learning the various levels within that second level. So you have to ask yourself on what level you're on, and how then do I get to the next level. Within each level you can have different levels, and different people will have different epiphanies within it. But then you get to another level and you have to use that level in such a way to get frustrated to do something even more. You see what I mean? So it's always running up on your inability to do it. Now, how do you dissolve that inability? That's the question. It's simply this way. Blending of yin and yang constantly. Recycling, because that's the constant way of the Tao. The Tao is constantly creating, destroying, recycling, creating, destroying, recycling, over and over and over again. So most of you have not done the form enough to hate the form, have been here long enough to hate me enough to actually make attainment. Because until I can really, really, really irritate you, until I can really, really, really get a student to the point of total, abject, facing yourself and judging yourself and going through all that night of the dark soul, so to speak, you're not ripe yet to be woke up to the next level. That's why it seems very hard. So how many people, and most of you black belts that are here, understand that what? People come here and do what? After a couple of weeks, they quit. Why do they quit? So just show them a little bit of irritation, they're gone. Well, that's okay, because they're probably not worth the time. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to convert them or change them into a more enlightened or perceptive being, able to attain the martial arts through what? Your emptiness. Until you become empty. So what's the usefulness of a cup? The space within it. Okay? Because emptiness can do what? Emptiness is great. Yin is great because it can contain everything. Yang can only be one thing at a time. But yin is one thing that contains all things. And so all things can organize themselves into different factions and then that way become yang, because they're the meaning. So you have to see in the art itself how you receive gravity, transfer it through your body, and then open up your mind to feel what creating that movement felt like, and then you can ascertain its yang qualities and to blend those yang qualities together. Like you would say, okay, did my follow step create the movement forward? Am I timed correctly? All those kind of things. Well, if you're not, then you've separated what? Yin and yang. So you have one part of you that's mistimed to the other part. See? But if you bring balance to that, you have to say, when I receive this part, how do I blend it and move it consequentially to the next part? You have to feel that process happen. You have to be able to analyze it within yourself and then drop the analysis and let the various parts that you've analyzed blend together to create one resonance in the movement so that you can feel the movement. You can feel, it goes off like a bell. When you do it right, it's correct. My first karate teacher, who I had a lot of, differences with in some things, but he always said, when I would ask him if this move is correct, because he had a whole lot of yang things. In other words, everything had to be precise. Everything was done. It was just, millimeter-like precision was what he was after. So, of course, that locks you into a rigidness that sometimes is not applicable. But it also teaches mind, body, intent blended together. So what he was telling me was really the second stage of Huajing, although he didn't know it in those terms, because his whole view was Okinawan karate. It wasn't the deep history of internal Chinese martial art. But he said, he would ask me back, when I would say, is this correct? He would say, how did it feel? Well, I kept wondering, why would he ask me, how did it feel? So that tells me that something's supposed to feel a certain way. So I spent years searching for that way. So it's not even so much what you look like, although it is, because you can delineate lines and forms. But what really counts is, did it go off with you? In other words, did it ring like a bell? Did it have a certain resonance? You're always seeking that resonance. You're always seeking that resonance. Will you always ring it perfectly? No, of course not. But you can be a lot closer than your opponent. Okay? So I was just compelled to ask you, to tell you those things today because of what I encounter all the time. Is I know I've got a lot of great students and they try really hard. Try really hard not to try so hard. In other words, take that try and turn around and add some yin to it and see what happens. And this goes back to your own nature. I see, and I have a lot of great women that come to class here and have made great attainment. But they first did it and sometimes remain in a yang mind. You need to trust yourself as a being to the point where you trust your intent to operate your physical body. And if it doesn't operate it on time, then you have to say, am I trying so much yang that I haven't balanced it with yin? So how would I catch my momentum here and recirculate? What would I do? You keep looking at that process constantly. It's like making a katana, They heat it, bang on it, cool it, heat it, bang on it, right? So the teacher's job is to heat you up and bang on you and reshape you over and over and over again. Okay? So if you find a teacher that tells you what you want to tell you, he's not really doing you any favors. But everybody's so sensitive today, and they're not cultivators of the self. They're not spiritual warriors. Before you can be a physical warrior, you better be a spiritual warrior. Because every fight I've ever been in as a policeman or corrections officer or anything else, it wasn't about a referee or anything. It's about life and death. That touches to your physical core. Practice it like life and death. And I promise you, if you do that, you'll go a long way to experiencing the art and getting that reward. And the reward is really deepened and widened perceptive ability. You start to see the truth. So when you see the truth, like the Dharma means truth, so this Dharma Way Dojo, the way of the truth. When you see the truth from your own nature, then you can see the truth or false in everything. You can no longer be fooled. You know the trick. You know the trick of the mind. You know the trick of evil, which tries to make you believe that you don't have the power. So the smartest trick the devil ever pulled was to make people believe he didn't exist. Okay? So keep that in mind. Thank you for coming today, and we'll move on to the question and answer section next. But keep this in mind. It's okay to share it if you want to, if any of you found it. To further the art and for people's rewarding experience of cultivating the self. So thank you.